Welcome back, welcome back. Just found out some really good information.
Maybe it was your time to lose. Lose? I don't lose! I win! I win! That's my job! That's what I do!
Niggas is stealing food now.
This is a Super Saiyan. And this. This is what is known as a Super Saiyan that has ascended past the Super Saiyan.
Yeah, it's about to be one of those
You can
episodes.
just call this a Super Saiyan 2.
I'm about to blow your mind.
Yeah.
I know this shit blew my mind.
Level up, baby.
It's one of those days.
I'm on my head.
It's one of these days, baby.
It's time to level up. I'm on my Goku.
Time to prove what I say is true.
It's time to level up. What's this I hear? GP ain't real. What's this I hear? GP ain't what? What's this I hear? GP won't kill. What's this I hear? GP is what? So a young Goku flow got the Kaioken. Not a Super Saiyan, but this AK player man, sprayer man. Shotgun Kamehameha, disintegrator, rappers whole flow, we call it hater spray. Shine so hard, niggas be ice grilling. Bring a great 8 down the size, call me Krillin. Legendary like Broly, I'm trying to make a million. Well, I need a red ribbon, niggas by the million. Need a special team blame. I'm not Piccolo, got hazel grenades, special beam cannons. You dirty special team standing. This 38 special, finish, push your whole team standing. These old niggas, we call them powder puffs. Scared to go hard, shake the world if I power up. You washed up or you showered up. How you gon' dry your FJ? Leave the whole towel cut. Educated, pressure got his powers up. Crush that sensu beam in the L, roll the shower up. Working class nigga, working ass nigga, living off another man's life. Hercules nigga, want the hawk on my back like trunks deep in. Put the third eye open, it must be TN. We've been through these difficult situations. This instant transmission help to blow by complications you facing. A natural beast, but like Vegeta, it's in my nature to feast. It's in my nature to beast on any whack rapper that ain't really trying to rape these beats. 40 cal bars, them never tease ya. Flow try beats, put your cells on a freezer. 40 cal bars, them never tease ya. Flow try beats, put your cells on a freezer. Hating away, not sitting a roll, then I fold, I smoke, and I can't let go. That shit that I go through, act like I owe you a jacket to show you the cats in the bats and the catch in the white. Catch me a fight, Mike in the light, or even a spark, and meet in the parks, and do what it takes. Can you break my barricade? I might back, you might run. Go get your gun, no, do it for fun, no, shoot with the gun, cause you with the gun, and I get the pipe, and take it, and light, but it's not with the break. Now it's a house, she feeds me to leave me alone when I'm not in my home. Come on, dome, and see what it means in jacket, so we
that energy through the creation of his mind, of what his mind believed, and what he spoke into existence,
You niggas not fucking with me.
of the power that he had.
Ever.
You understand what I'm saying?
I don't care who you are.
Anything that you set your mind to,
Dead.
get that force.
You ain't fucking with me.
Because your mind is just this powerful machine.
I'm on my head. Yeah, I'm on my head. Yeah, I'm on my head. Yeah, it's time to level up on my...
Alright, let's stop playing around. Alright. So either I'm crazy or I'm right. I don't accept the a little bit thing. Nah, either I'm all the way right or I'm crazy. No, I'm not wrong. I'm crazy. See, I like to play those games. Nobody likes to play those games. It's called going all in. Putting it all on the line. Now, for a while now, I keep telling you I'm Black Goku. I keep pointing out certain colors and shit, right? And I keep saying, for some reason, this is the shit that I love. This is the shit I'm drawn to. And then I taught you DNA, memory, and all of that good stuff that scientists prove to you. So now that I've seen this video, I like to bring out reality.
What's cheaper, replacing your roof or rebuilding your home? Don't
Oh
end up paying
yeah,
money.
there's gonna be a whole lot of somebody's been replaced. Yeah, let's go.
The early history of Japan are of great interest and fascination, as you would no doubt soon find out. It was long believed that there was no Paleolithic occupation in Japan, but since World War II, thousands of sites have been unearthed throughout the country, yielding a wide variety of Paleolithic tools. These include both core tools, made by chipping away the surface of a stone, and flake tools, made by working with a stone flake broken off from a larger piece
Pay
of stone.
attention.
These were pure Stone Age discoveries on Japan's earth. However, what's more interesting is that there is little doubt that the people who used these implements moved to Japan from the Asian continent. The prehistoric and ancient era of Japan covers the time up until 538 AD, which includes the Paleolithic period from 35,000 BC to 14,000 BC, the Jomon period from 14,000 BC to 300 BC, the Yayoi period from 300 BC to 250 AD, and the Kofun period from 250 to 538 AD. The earliest human beings to live in the Japanese archipelago existed during the Stone Age period, also called the Paleolithic period. Eventually, they built the foundation of the Jomon culture, which is one of the world's oldest societies, known for their hunting and gathering practices. In addition to tool making, they also started shaping pottery with a rope pattern design using wet clay and creating jewelry.
You know what the Bible called the Israelites? Hunter-gatherers.
From shells, stones, bones, antlers, and other materials. This had led to the start of 300 BC, where rice farming and metallurgy of iron and bronze arose. This period, which lasted until 250 AD, is referred to as Yayoi, meaning new life, in reference to an area in Tokyo where...
I like that. Yayoi.
Artifacts from this era were unearthed. This accumulated evidence, however, much of which has been quietly ignored, unfolds undoubtedly that the first people on the soil of Japan were Africans. Welcome to this video. Today we are taking a dive into Japan's early foundation in association with the Black presence that gave it its first language and has been a badge of honor in its history. Before we continue, don't forget to encourage our efforts by pressing the like button. Also share with your families and friends, and subscribe if you are yet to do so. Your support is very much valued. Meaningful indications of an African presence in ancient Japan have been unearthed from the most remote ages of the Japanese past. To begin with, and as a significant example, a February 15, 1986 report carried by the Associated Press chronicled that the oldest Stone Age hut in Japan has been unearthed.
What's the odds they figure this out? And what was I, 4 years old?
Near Osaka. Archaeologists date the hut to about 22,000 years ago and say it resembles the dugouts of African bushmen, according to Wazuo Hirose of Osaka, Prefectural of Education's Cultural Division.
Fun fact. If you thought that French people can't call themselves French, fun fact. Chinese people and all of that, they tried to say they're the first people, so they used DNA testing and to prove that they're the first. And they found out that they come from Africa. They're really Africans. So they already know this.
Other homes, almost as old, have been found before, but this discovery is significant because the shape is cleaner, better preserved, and is similar to the Africans' dugouts. Over the years, there have been several written works concerning identifiable African presence in the foundation and early history of Japan. In 1923, anthropologist Roland B. Dixon wrote that this earliest population of Japan were in the main a blend of Proto-Australoid and Proto-Negroid types, and thus similar in the ancient underlying stratum of the population.
Why do they say Negroid? Negroids are not Africans. Even the Bible says that. DNA testing says that.
southward along the whole coast and throughout
There's a
Indochina and beyond
difference.
to India itself. Dixon pointed out that, in Japan, the ancient negrito element may still be discerned by characteristics which are at the same time exterior, that is, a dark skin tone, and osteologic, that is, in osteology, a field of anatomy which has to do with the scientific study of the bone structure of a particular individual or species. Another instance is found in the last major text, Civilization or Barbarism, an authentic anthropology, 1991, by the late Dr. Cheikh Anta Diop, from 1923 to 1926, who had pointed out in the first edition of the Nation's Negre et Culture, 1954, that the yellow race must be the result of an interbreeding of black and white in a cold climate, perhaps around the end of the Upper Paleolithic period. Another Japanese scientist, Nobuo Takano, Maryland, chief of dermatology at the Hamatsu Red Cross Hospital, maintains in substance that the first human being was black. Then blacks gave birth to whites, and the interbreeding of these two gave rise to the yellow race, Japan. As to linguistics, in 1987, former Senegalese President Leopold Sédar Senghor noted, "The people who populate the island of Japan today are descendants of blacks. Let us not forget that the first population of Japan was black, and gave to Japan their first language." In 1940, the great Joel Augustus Rogers, from 1883 to 1966, who probably did more to popularize African...
So when I say, I'm fucking Shogun now, and you're my ninjas, your boss got a boss that got a boss, and I work for the boss, so that makes me your boss.
history than any scholar of the 20th century, devoted
I know you
several
don't like
pages of
that.
the first volume of his
I don't
section
like it
race to
neither.
the black presence in early Japan.
You bad
He
workers.
cites the studies of a number of accomplished scholars and anthropologists,
Useless.
and even goes as far as to raise the question of, were the first Japanese Negroes? In the words of Rogers, there is a very evident Negro strain in a certain element of the Japanese population, particularly those in the South. Imbert says, the Negro element in Japan is recognizable by the Negro
Why niggas always downtown? Why niggas always in the South?
Negroid aspect of certain inhabitants with dark and often blackish skin, frizzly or curly hair. The Negritos are the oldest race of the Far East.
What
It has
did
been
he
proven
say?
that
The Negrito race? Put a V in front of that. And what do we get? The Vegeta race, right? When I fucking tell you I'm the prince of all Super Saiyans, I ain't lying.
once lived in eastern and southern China as well as in Japan,
Peasants!
where the Negrito element is recognizable still in the population. As a way of further shedding light on this, let us fast forward to the present times to see if these scientific citations have any lingering evidence in our modern-day people of Japan. So, this should come as a fun question. Are there any black Japanese amongst us today? Yes, and yes there are. There are Japanese who have very dark skin and hair that would grow naturally into an afro. Although many people have given Ariana Miyamoto, Miss Universe Japan 2015, Crystal K and sports stars such as Asuka Cambridge as examples, I'm not sure if they really illustrate this evidence sufficiently well, as these celebrities tend to be fluent in English and have non-Japanese names, giving them an international image. So, the most effective way of confirming these numerous citations already would be to present to you, my dear viewers, none other than Jun Soejima. Let us take a brief look at the history of this young man, very black in appearance with that magnificent afro which adds around 20 centimeters to his already formidable height, but thoroughly Japanese in every other...
This year, while you're making your list and checking it twice,
Oh,
don't forget
really?
to give the gift of safety. Now,
Really,
that may not
really,
sound
really?
the most
but thoroughly Japanese in every other way, from his speech to his mannerisms. He even got his university degree in traditional Japanese culture. He's been a reporter on the national broadcaster NHK's morning show Asaichi since April, when they had an English-speaking celebrity as a guest. The host of the show automatically invited Soejima to converse with her in English, whereupon they discovered that his English ability was about the same as your average Japanese. They've stopped getting him to play any kind of gaijin role since. Soejima once said that he used to run away from African Americans who often greeted him with, "Hey, brother," in Roppongi and other Gaijin enclaves, since they didn't believe him when he said, "I can't speak English," with a Japanese accent. However, the black presence in early Japan does not stop at merely being a genetic foundation, but goes a lot further to dust up and polish that old abandoned mirror where one could see warmly the historically shared bond between the Japanese and the African, the strangely divine harmony which often had existed in tune with the beliefs of the Japanese, and the historical signature born of the brave conquest and fortress which the black presence has being to the collective Japanese community. Of the black people of early Japan, the most picturesque single figure was Sakanuye no Tamuramaro, a warrior symbolized in Japanese history as a paragon of military virtues, and a man who has
He looks
captured the
familiar.
attention of some of the most distinguished scholars of
I like
20th
his
century
dress
America.
style.
Perhaps the first such scholar to make note of Tamuramaro was Alexander Francis Chamberlain, from 1865 to 1914. An anthropologist, Chamberlain was born in Kenninghall, Norfolk, England, and was brought to America as a child. In April 1911, the Journal of Race Development published an essay by Chamberlain entitled "The Contribution of the Negro to Human Civilization." While discussing the African presence in early Asia, Chamberlain stated in an exceptionally frank and matter-of-fact manner, "And we can cross the whole of Asia and find the Negro again, for when, in far-off Japan, the ancestors of the modern Japanese were making their way northward against the Ainu, the aborigines of that country, the leader of their armies was Sakanuye Tamuramaro, a famous general and a Negro." Dr. Webb Du Bois, from 1868 to 1963, perhaps the greatest scholar in American history, in his book The Negro, first published
General, huh?
in 1915, placed Sakanuye Tamuramaro within a list of some of the most distinguished black rulers and warriors in antiquity. In 1922, Carter G. Woodson, from 1875 to 1950, and Charles Harris Wesley, from 1891 to 1987, in a chapter called Africans in History with Others, in their book The Negro in Our History, quoted Chamberlain on Tamuramaro verbatim. In the November 1940 issue of the Negro History Bulletin, founded by Dr. Woodson, artist and illustrator Lois Mallow Jones, from 1905 to 1998, contributed a brief article entitled Sakanuye Tamuramaro. In this very article, Jones points out the probable number of Negroes who reached the shores of Asia may be estimated somewhat by the wide area over which they were found on that continent. Historians tell us that at one time Negroes were found in all of the countries of southern Asia, bordering the Indian Ocean, and along the east coast as far as Japan. There are many interesting stories told by those who reached that distant land, which at that time they called Cipango. One of the most prominent characters in Japanese history was a Negro warrior called Sakanuye Tamuramaro. Very similar themes were expressed in 1946 in The Orient, the first section in Distinguished Negroes Abroad, a book by Beatrice J. Fleming and Marion J. Pride, in which was contained a small chapter dedicated to the Negro General of Japan, Sakanuye Tamuramaro. In 1989, Dr. Mark Hyman authored a booklet entitled Black Shogun of Japan, in which he stated that the fact remains that Sakanuye Tamuramaro was an African. He was Japanese. He was a great fighting general. He was a Japanese shogun. In a 1991 publication entitled The World of Sakanuye no Tamuramaro, James E. Brunson, author of Black Jade, the African presence.
That name is really familiar for some reason. Amaru. Oh, Tupac. Shakur. Amaru.
In the ancient East and several other important texts, stated that in order to fully understand the world of Sakanuye Tamuramaro, we must focus on all aspects of the African presence in the Far East. The list of testimonials concerning the black legend by informed, reputable scholars around the world is endless, which speaks volumes in respect of his outstanding individuality. You don't want to leave out this one, too, from Joel Augustus Rogers, who had mentioned Tamuramaro briefly in the first volume of one of his written works, World's Great Men of Color, also published in 1946. Rogers, regrettably, was forced to confess as follows: "I have come across certain names in China and Japan, such as Sakanuye Tamuramaro, the first shogun of Japan, but I did not follow them up, sadly. He continued. Sakanuye Tamuramaro was a warrior symbolized in early Japanese history as a paragon of military virtues. Could it be that this...
You get it? Do you get it yet? No, you don't get it.
was what Dr. Diop was alluding to in his first major book,
You don't get it yet.
Nations, Negros, and Culture, when he directed our attention to the
But you
tantalizing
will.
and yet profound Japanese proverb which says
I
that
promise you.
for a samurai to be brave, he must have a bit of black blood. The peculiarity of Tamaramaro's daring martial exploits as a samurai in early Japan had given rise to the renowned Japanese proverb. Rogers must have learned of things concerning the legend that shook his very thoughts. It was said that Tamuramaro had the strength of over 100 men in him. This was no exaggeration. He often went out with few and came back conquering very many. He danced in deadly battles with some terrible intelligence for war, as though it was game. His eye...
Strength of 100 men, that sounds familiar. Oh, Samson. War is just a game. Life is just a game. Sounds familiar. I like this guy's dress style. I like those colors. They seem familiar.
In rigid hands everywhere, he was one with the air. He was often mistaken to be more than no less than 50 people in the battlefield, killing and wounding many almost at once. His strength was beyond human, inexhaustible. His speed, untrackable, so that history had to bow to the commander himself, the fortress of Japan. Sakanuye no Tamuramaro was indeed an outstanding Japanese military commander and samurai who lived an unsurpassable icon during the Heian period, from 794 to 1185, to say the least. He was an unmatchable guard of the early Heian royal court and imperial palace, known for his great military achievements and contributions to the early consolidation of power in Japan. Tamuramaro played a significant role in suppressing the Amishi people, who inhabited the northeastern region of Japan and resisted central government control. Appointed by the Emperor Seiwa to lead campaigns against the Amishi in the late 800s, Tamuramaro successfully led his forces in battles and played a key role in subjugating the Amishi resistance. The paragon of military virtues, Sakanuye no Tamuramaro, from 758 to 811, was, in the words of James Murdoch, in a sense the originator of what was subsequently to develop into the renowned samurai class. He provided in his own person a worthy model for the professional warrior on which to fashion himself and his character. In battle, a veritable war god. In peace, the gentlest of manly gentlemen and the simplest and unassuming of men. Throughout his career, Tamuramaro was rewarded for his services with high civil as well as military positions. In 797, he was named Barbarian Subduing Generalissimo, Seitai Shogun, and in 801 to 802, he again campaigned in northern Japan, establishing fortresses at Izawa and Shiwa, and effectively subjugating the Ainu. In 810, he helped to suppress an attempt to restore the retired Emperor Heizei to the throne.
I like this guy. Fights really righteously.
In 810, he helped to suppress an attempt to restore the retired Emperor Heizei to the throne. In 811, the year of his death, he was appointed Great Counselor, Dainagon, and Minister of War, Hyobukyo. Sakanuye no Tamuramaro was buried in the village of Kurisu, near Kyoto, and it is believed that it is his tomb which is known under the name of Shogun-zuka. Tamuramaro is the founder of the famous temple Kiyomizu-dera. He is the ancestor of the Tamura daimyo of Mutsu.
I don't want to rewind it, but I know he didn't say Shogun Zuko. You know, from the Avatar.
Tamuramaro was not only the first to bear the title of Seitai Shogun, but he was also the first of the warrior statesmen of Japan. In later ages, he was revered by military men as a model commander and as the first recipient of the title Shogun, the highest rank to which a warrior could aspire. Tamuramaro's legacy is celebrated in Japanese history and culture. Many stories, legends, and artistic representations depict his exploits. further solidifying his status as a historical figure of significance in Japan's early history. In exploring the fascinating tapestry of Japan's history, it becomes increasingly clear that the indigenous black presence of early Japan is an essential thread for long overlooked. By acknowledging the contributions of the indigenous black community towards Japan's foundation, we celebrate the social bond shared between both nations, and also the sense of belonging of every African all around the world who has contributed in one way or the other to their
Negro.
place of dwelling regardless. In the honest endeavor to enrich our historical narrative, which has been misinterpreted for way too long, we also pave the way for a more inclusive and united future for all.
Africans ain't got a problem like Negroes do. Seems like what Negroes had, they don't have anymore. Why? How?
It's all good though.
My father said he can keep it. He got better for us. And we're gonna build it with our bare hands.